Welcome to our Shield of the Sun video. This is Vince McMahon, part 4. When Vince McMahon decided to play his evil character on his wrestling programs and pay-per-view, this happening was to show, and not even in a successful subversive way, the real McMahon, and to influence fans worldwide to be more hardened, cynical, lustful, corrupt, satanic, and all-around evil, as he would be the heel to the Stone Cold Steve Austin character and engage in storylines that were all too close or dead on to the real Vince McMahon. His storyline involvement got heavily started in 1997 when McMahon was having a real feud with Bret the Hitman Hart, which turned really ugly and resulted in real altercations on national television. When the 1997 Survivor Series came about, McMahon hatched out a real and manipulating plan to take the WWF World title from Bret Hart during what has now become famously called the Montreal Screwjob. After the event was over, Vince would do a television interview with his announcer and bookie named JR. Vince, during the interview, in front of millions of people, even though he was guilty of orchestrating what happened, his response to screwing Bret was, "I did not screw Bret Hart. Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart." These twisted comments, which was the way he really felt about it, and still does, despite his phony apologies, which came well over a decade later and was done for PR reasons, were the comments that cemented his place in the eyes of the fans as the evil Mr. McMahon, the true Vince. Before McMahon went there, before the world, he was known as the good guy announcer who would downplay or avoid being known as the owner of the WWF, often having front guys to seem like the authority. Before that year of mid to late 97, that was what he was known as, a color commentator, until he immersed himself in dark and controversial storylines of the WWF, and as this evil persona, he would feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, whose Austin character would week after week challenge the boss's authority in front of millions and millions of people, influencing them to be rebellious before authority figures in their lives. That feud was the main reason that the WWF in 1998 regained wrestling's #1 spot as a top promoter in the world, reclaiming their title from WCW. The WWF found itself greatly helping to reshape national pop culture, and their Monday Night Raw broadcast was the center of that satanic happening. WWF's reclaim to the #1 spot got extremely pushed when they added former World Championship boxer Mike Tyson into the mix of the Austin-McMahon feud, and then they used him to join DX and torture Austin, along with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Chyna, who worked with him. These storylines became the build-up to WrestleMania 14 and helped that WrestleMania to break all pay-per-view record buyouts they had up till that time. Then a match was scheduled on Raw featuring Austin versus McMahon, where Austin had to wrestle him with one arm tied around his back. That episode reclaimed the #1 spot in ratings, and the WWF was now on top. Its product became, as it were, better than WCW. In late 1998, Vince McMahon started to step outside the lines of the Austin feud and started to show more darker things about himself. This got heavily pushed when he wanted to honor his actions regarding the Montreal Screwjob, and so he causes the world title position to become vacant and ordered a World Championship 14-man tournament called the Deadly Games at the Survivor Series in 1998. The first of the tournament, seemingly, had McMahon favoring Mankind to win, and even using underhand tactics to see to that, because before the event, Mankind visited McMahon in the hospital. In fact, Austin also visited him, but not to cheer him up, but to attack him in a hospital bed, dressed as a doctor, and he even takes a medical object, and seemingly as the camera goes off, he sodomizes McMahon with it. This is what is called good TV in the US, and the world loved it. We are truly lost. McMahon actually did get injured during a skit that led to him going to the hospital when The Undertaker and Kane got mad at him over his decision regarding the world title, and so they took some steel steps and smashed it upon McMahon's ankle and broke it. So in fact he really did end up in the hospital. At the beginning of that pay-per-view, McMahon gives Mankind a new title belt, the Hardcore Championship belt, due to Mankind's status as a hardcore legend. During the main event match, it was The Rock versus Mankind for the world title, and McMahon seemingly did not want The Rock to win, but supported Mankind, and he sat ringside during the match just like he did at the '97 event. During the match, The Rock caught Mankind for the sharpshooter, and he looks at McMahon and then puts Mankind in the sharpshooter, and when he does, McMahon ordered the referee to ring the bell, when Mankind did not submit, thus giving The Rock his first world title. The scene was what happened with Michaels and Hart. It was a pay homage to the Montreal Screwjob and to send an insider's message to WCW and Bret Hart. After The Rock became champion, McMahon called The Rock the corporate champion to subversively show that all world champions, past and present, were always corporate-picked champions. This happening led to the pre-arranged storylines of the corporation, along with Vince's son named Shane McMahon. Another twisted thing he did happen at a pay-per-view called At Rock Bottom in Your House, when Mankind defeated The Rock with the Mandible Claw. McMahon forced the referees to reverse the decision and gave the belt back to The Rock. The strange occurrence was done to show how abuse of power is done. In 1999, McMahon would ignite his feud with Austin, and he offered $100,000 to anyone who was able to eliminate Austin in the 1999 Royal Rumble. This showed a side to McMahon, how he hires people to hurt or kill other people. With the help of his corporate members, McMahon took part in the Royal Rumble of '99, and he won it in a ridiculous fashion, and he earned, as it were, a spot in the main event match at WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia. Of course, he turned this down, and then the commissioner at the time, who was an injured Shawn Michaels, awarded the spot to Austin. But McMahon was not going to make it easy for Austin, and so he forces him to put his title shot on the line against McMahon in a steel cage match at an event called In Your House, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which was to honor the murders Al Capone and his men committed in Chicago against the Irish mob members, for Vince is a devout mafia ally. During the match, McMahon almost breaks his neck in half when he falls from the top of the black steel cage and incorrectly lands his body through an announcer's table, where he suffers a concussion when his neck snaps back upon the table during impact. During the match, a human giant athlete called The Big Show makes his WWF debut, and he throws Austin through the side of the steel cage. Austin would have a famous moment called the Beer Bash, when on Raw he takes a semi-truck filled with beer and drives a master truck to the middle of the ring and takes the truck's hoe and uses it to spray and douse heavy amounts of beer on The Rock, Vince McMahon, and other corporate members, as he tells The Rock in these words he will come to the SmackDown Hotel and check into room 316 and burn that mother effer to the ground, and this is how we came into the excitement of WrestleMania 15 in a city that saw no love that night. Austin on that night would regain the world title for the third time, as the face of the WWF product was twisted, filled with dark New Age heroes that only Crawley could love. During 1999, Vince McMahon's corporation stable started a feud with the satanic stable led by The Undertaker, called the Ministry of Darkness, whose symbol was the mark of Cain, and whose members Bradshaw, Simmons, Edge, Christian, Gabriel, and others were real-life Satanists of the wrestling business, and live on stage in front of millions and millions of people watching on national television, the Ministry of Darkness would perform real satanic ceremonies and rituals. This ends our video for part 4.